Hi, Gertie. I'm a survivor of hope, and I would like to talk to you about the things that I experience because I understand from speaking to you previously. Are you a person that believes in something?
Um, I don't believe in the conformist church. I don't believe in Catholicism um, or any of the other Christianity beliefs. No, I don't. I believe there is a force of nature, a force of the universe, which we all are part of, but I don't believe in the scripted version of religion.
Okay, well, something happened to me yesterday, but before I get to the something happened to me upon doing this interview that you called to ask me some questions, I gladly thought about, yeah, I'd like to do an interview. But the first thing that came into my mind was, what are people going to say, whether they recognize my voice or not? So there's a little bit of apprehensive there because I do have a belief, but I have my own belief. And in having my own belief, I was approached yesterday, and it's nothing worse than somebody walking up to you and talking to you about church, even though you know they mean well. I feel that ramming it down your throat, they have no idea of the bad experiences that come within that. So it's almost like a trigger word, you know. I'm not saying that it didn't do me good, because I believe that when we're in our time of need and we're at our lowest, we go because that is the only thing left. If you can get into a church that suits you, whether it's something that a preacher does and just reads from a script, or whether it's a happy, clappy church, or anything. There's so much bad reputation about the church. Now, my experiences have been okay when I first entered the church, and I've been to many. And the first time I experienced something, I was an emotional wreck going into the church. I was in floods of tears, thinking, "Oh, this is the way. Oh, I've been touched," because everybody says, "Oh, you've been touched." Okay, so I experienced my own personal stuff, but you're not left to your own devices. You're actually having things confirmed. So you start to have a belief. And, but then they have expectations. Are you coming next week? Where was you? You were missing. I haven't seen you. What have you been doing? Here comes the judgment. And the judgment in in churches, some of the churches, I'm ashamed to say that it is my understanding that he who casts the first stone be without sin. So that's what I've been hearing. Second of all, the big man apparently doesn't do hate. Okay, so it the, it's confusing when it comes to the church, because what I actually do see is human beings abusing other human beings. That's what I get. I'm not saying all. I am saying that those places can be the worst for making you feel hopeless. Um, there's another incident in some of the things that I can see that They have their own belief within some of these small churches. They have their own belief. They become charities, and then they always say you should be putting half of your wages, pretty much tidings they call it, into the pot. What, so the pastor can get rich, more richer? Because when I when you can go to these people and say, listen, the community needs some help in this department, they're not interested. They don't, and they will tell their members not to attend your events if it contains alcohol or loud music or anything like that. And if that's going to do that, for me, who are you to make? That's one pastor is making a judgment on everybody else, and they're following. And they shouldn't be following him. They should be following the private conversation they have between themselves and who is above. Okay?
Yeah. Um, I can see where you're coming from.
The
I
preacher's there
can.
to give the word. The preacher is there to give the word and
Yeah.
a reminder of hope
Yeah.
and faith. But when that preacher starts dictating who can attend events and who can't attend events, that becomes a different story. That becomes judgment and also control, one of which is almost like domestic violence, because domestic violence is not really much similar. When somebody says you shouldn't do it, if you do, there's consequences, you're going to be an outcast. And the church can be the worst for confrontation, because money laundering, and not helping in your time of need. When I was at my most vulnerable, they weren't there. When I put vulnerable people over to say, could you help the vulnerable people? Do not forget the vulnerable people. They weren't helpful. It's almost like they'll run it the way they want. As long as they've got the main characters in there, they're happy. Let's honor the ones that pay the most money. That's my experience in some churches. My own other experience is that I've had many people that I come across that have been abused and raped by pastors. I'm not actually see if I'm saying it right, but I'm not saying all. I'm just saying that sometimes there can be a devil in a red dress. There can be a devil in a cloak. There you go. So it's my belief that you 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 you've just got to be very careful to make sure you're not following, and you're having your own belief, but you're not following to a point where you lose yourself, and that it takes the fun out of life. One day a week, I don't believe one day a week is enough to heal people. I believe, yeah, right, you can say go away and pray. But what I said to the person that I saw is, have you any idea how let down I feel by the church in the work that I do? Because I'm helping healing the community here in the shape of their health, their mental health and well-being, and I'm not getting any help from the churches. I'm not getting them to help me with awareness. I'm not getting them to attend any events. In fact, I'm not getting the sponsorship, and yet I'm healing some of their people. Now, what I said to the person was, if you were to believe that I'm going to use the word, he works wonders, then how do you think the healing process occurs? And you can't sit in the church and pray and think that it's all going to be okay. You see, some of these church folks are the worst for some of the church folks are the worst for sitting back and allowing domestic violence and abuse to continue and think that the Lord is going to save them. Now, in my opinion, and I am a woman that likes faith, loves faith, adores the Listen, he's my private business, so I don't have to explain what it feels like. It's very difficult to explain a private thought, okay? And that's what it is, a private thought. So, from my understanding, is that having your own private thought, then it should be private because you take and steer direction from those private thoughts. There was a time I didn't want to be here, and I had a really strange experience on more than one occasion. And it was a time where I was going to go get drunk, get high, and contemplate doing something stupid. And I was attending church, but no church was checking up on me in my time of need. It seems that you can just attend on a Sunday, but what about the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday when you're in your time of need? No prayer is going to just manifest silence. If you don't, and you're not in touch with other people in the community, they're the people in the community are in my understanding, you are blessed with the right people at the right time to help you with your situation. That there is, if I just say I put out a wish, I wish for this situation to change, but this is what I need. And suddenly, all of a sudden, say it's an accountant, suddenly, all of a sudden, I've met someone and they tell me they do an accountant. That's me getting my wish granted, isn't it? Because I had some hope, because I prayed over it, just like blowing out a birthday candle. Okay. And when it comes true, that's where my strength in this, this positive thinking and this affirmations, and it's almost like it is law of attraction. We have this faith in the way, which is making it doubly stronger, that you believe that everything is for good and everything is intended for purpose. Even those church folk that come in and say, you come into church. No, I'm not. I can't pretend to like how you're treating the community. If you're working for the big man and I'm working for the big man and it don't feel right for me, how can you be right and I be so wrong? Who are you? If I work for the big man and the big man says I need to deliver this message and it happens to be to church folk, then now we've got a conflict of interest because we've got a power struggle, haven't we? The person that preaches thinks that the messages that they're giving out is solely for everybody else, but will not receive any messages solely from other people. So that's power. That's a power struggle right there. Because for me, I believe that I preach what I say preach. I use this word because I believe I teach positive thinking to change the outcome, changing the outcome. And I always say that the devil wants you to stay depressed. That's how I always say it. I always say fear is of the enemy. So if you go to church and you start to fear the people within the church, that's your own issue. Are you going to speak against some of the stuff that you hear what go on, like arguments or stealing and this, that, and the other? You're not going to do that, are you? Because it's somebody's charity. So when you go to someone's charity, you're there to share their space and respect their space, follow their guidelines. If you don't like their guidelines, then you don't have to go. And as far as I'm concerned, you don't have to go to church to believe in something. If you are to believe in what church stands for, it means people have been searching for church all a long time, right? And it's a building. It's not a building. It's we are church. The whole nation. We are one. And at the end of the day, it's supposed to be kind to humanity. These are the teachings of what I've learned without church. Because when you're nasty, That's evil. And when you're kind, that's hope, that's faith, that's comfort, that's everything you could probably imagine. Peace and living without fear is a wonderful thing if you get the opportunity. But so many people live in fear and judgment, and that judgment can come from those that have more faith than others. If particularly if they're attending to church. I've been in several different churches because I wanted to understand how everybody teaches different, as many as I could. You know, I wanted to how to. I, if I walked in a building and it wasn't to my expectations, I can be pretty bored because I'm looking for a certain emotion, and that emotion is not. It's. I really like the gospel. I love the gospel because the music brings and sets off emotions. But I'm having my private thought. But when I walk out of there, I feel alone. When I'm in there, I'm good because I just smile, but I'm there for myself. But as soon as the prayer's over, there's little, often, hardly any interest in what someone's doing in the community. It's all about the
Yeah.
pastor. And yet, at the end of the day, you know, like I say, one weekend ain't cutting it. There's really life changing work that needs to be done out there. And I believe at the end of the day, there could be more involvement and more awareness to help the community, which does attend the church, some, but when they go home, they're living with depression. Okay. And some of those people that attend church, they're on the last legs before they go. So it's very easy to be led by the church rather than to be led by your own instinct. Go ahead. Any questions on that?
Yeah. I find that very interesting. Your opinion of the church is very similar to mine. I've read the Bible a couple of times, and I've studied religion more recently through the web, but in books and on television, even when I was at uni.
Hmm.
That's always interested me why people have got this faith in something they can't see, touch, or there's nothing tangible. And
Um,
obviously, as a state of mind. Now, if you read the Old Testament, God, I will use the word God because really that's what we're talking about. They're all saying,
there's all
you
kinds
know,
of names for this
yeah, yeah, but
higher.
we'll, yeah, yeah, but we'll just use the word God as a generic term. Um, in the Old Testament, as a very vengeful God. You don't do what I do, I will kill your son. I will wipe all these people out. I will bring the walls of Jericho down. And I want you to go up there and kill your son, sacrifice your son to me. To me, that's a very controlling, not what I call a loving
It would turn you
father.
away, wouldn't it? It would turn you
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
And the
But
thing is,
but the New Testament, for a better for me, which I think the Christians follow, obviously is through Christ or Muhammad, because they're virtually the same. They're both prophets, very interesting people. Did Jesus exist? Yes, I believe he did. Did Muhammad exist? Yes, I believe he did. And I think they must have had a great deal of personality. They must have had a deep belief because that's gone worldwide. So there was something about those two. What? appeal to people. And with Jesus or Christ or the Messiah, he he preached love.
Mm.
He didn't preach hate. He went to the temple and he scattered all the tables and said, "Look, this is a place of worship, not for money laundering, not for selling birds and all the rest of it. This is a place of God. This is a place of worship. You're hypocrites." And that I believe in. Um,
From watching the films, because I've watched some of the films. I mean, and when you're a little girl, they used to tell you the stories at school. Obviously, they removed religion now and prayer from schools, but we used to sing. But I used to be very interested in the films, and I didn't. It was the schools that got us into religion at the beginning. Now they've taken it all away. But at school,
yeah,
I wasn't into it. My parents didn't go to church, um, and none of us went to church. I think I went to church with my one of my relatives. I'm going to say that one of my relatives at the age of 13. Now I was baptized at the age of 13, but I just thought it was a big adventure. I'm going to be dunked in the water and I'm going to feel better. But nobody naturally knew when I was being dunked in the water that I was being abused, or had been abused. So therefore, of course, I'm going to want saving, you know. And maybe perhaps at the end of the day, I've been protected because of that blessing. People having wishes over me and prayers over me. Let me put it in two different terms. Okay. And for me, I think I still went for a very difficult journey after that, 13, a really horrendous journey, and nowhere through my journey at the bottom of the bottle or the bottom of domestic violence was faith in my. I wasn't even thinking of faith ever. I also had the little spurts. Am I being judged? I'll switch it all off and things like that. And then people used to say, "Oh, you're sinning. You're you're a fornicator." All of those horrible words that were their name calling. So, what part of that faith and hope, calling people names, is is kind? It's not. Um, I I can't explain how I've been connected with certain people, but I let it go and I trusted my what I call instinct, um, a sense of right and wrong, a conscience, and that's more what it is, a conscience to relax and not let fear in. Um, putting
can yeah, can I just ask you a question, please,
Yeah, please too.
Survivor? Yeah. Um, have you ever read the Bible?
I refused to read. I was given a Bible which I read Psalms. I seem to relate to, I think it's Psalms how you
Yeah,
say it. I seem to relate to that because it's more English language. Um, and it was more relatable. I used to say, well, okay, give me a number then. And then I would just randomly, my conscience would pick a number, I'd go to it and, oh, this is almost relatable. And I just would put it in, and it described what my current situation was. And then it sort of said, just relax while that it was always sort of teaching me what the enemy was doing to me, you see. So what I started to, it's more, you know what this is? CBT. That's what most of this is. This is a cognitive behavior therapy, retraining the mind to understand who's against you and who's for you.
yeah,
Seeing
yeah,
who's harmful and who isn't harmful. And thus we say, when they're harmful, let's change the circle. We can teach them by not allowing bad behavior like that in a way. And so they're in the when it comes to the Bible, for me, I believe that common sense taught me that there went, if this higher power has been around for millions of years and he created the earth, well, excuse me, there was no pen and paper back then or printing machines. So surely some of the words and stuff gets lost in transaction and people have made their own crap up. And then
Hmm.
as a fear monger, particularly black people were not allowed to read back in the day, but the only thing they could read was the Bible, which basically put fear into people. Now, tell me something, and I'm going to say this hand on heart, this is the way I feel. When black people are praying to a white Jesus, I have an issue with that. Okay?
Yeah,
I would really
yeah,
say to you, please just tell me how you got to the color you were. Because if you read the Bible, it said curly hair, wool like, and you you know, if you're led to believe that they're coming from afar in a hot climate, then your skin tone would clearly burn. So you can't even be in this heat without suntan lotion, without lotion, some factor. So for me, I never got the concept of, if he made a man in his image, then the image is you. You are his story. That's why I call it history. His story. You are his story. So, how you carry out this journey and leave your legacy, leave good memories. You have to be amazing or to be wonderful things for the community to have that recognition. There are times where I now, because of the stories that I've heard, I can only say, do you know what? I feel like Jesus sometimes. And how I relate to that is, no matter how good that I try to do for the community, the enemy come and try and tear me down in the shape of individuals. Now,
yes, yes,
and
I
that's
agree.
and that's and that's amongst us. And sometimes the way I look at it and say the enemy within, because you can come across a normal, you don't see what's wrong with someone to start to get to know them. And some of these people could be drinking alcohol. Okay, I call that devil juice. All right, because at the end of the day, you turn nasty with it, you can turn, no, don't have common sense with it, you can commit crime on it, you can do a lot of stuff on alcohol and even take your life, it's been known. So therefore I call that the devil juice. Now, why with would all this be sold out there? Because it's to create divide, power. We know alcohol's bad for you, but they still sell it, right? Why is that? Because if the world was all kind, that would put people out of business. There are greedy people out there that do not care for any kind of religion, any kind of faith, hope, or nothing like that. And I always think that these people at the end of the day are narcissistic, if you want to put it in mental health terms.
Yep, yep,
And so if you put the Bible or faith into good and evil, you've got to look at the characteristics within people. How are they? Are they coming across understanding? Are they coming across revenge, manipulative? Because behavior, right, has narcissistic traits or manipulating traits. And if you are going to be any one of those without the empathy or compassion to understand and help a situation, then you must have some narcissistic traits. I understand if people don't want to move from their ideas because they think they're right, but just how many people stay on that right path depends how they're being treated in life, right? I loved some of the churches that I went to, particularly those that didn't pressure you whether or not you're coming back or not. But one of the things I believe, if you become a member of the church, then I do believe that your welfare should be taken in consideration as a member throughout the weeks and months if you are investing in where you're coming from. Then it's got to be the people have to be working for the people, because they keep looking at a church building to saving them, and it's not working. It is the people that are helping the people. And if you go to church and you're not outside of that church doing anything for the community but sitting in a chair and waiting for the next weekend, then you're not doing anything for the community. So
Yeah,
there's life
yes,
out there that needs to be changed.
I totally agree with you. And you talk about praying. Now, going back to Jesus or Christ Messiah, he said the people what pray in groups or on the street, like the Pharisees, which were the head of the church, are hypocrites. They're doing it so everybody think how good they are and how religious they are. He said, but the man or the woman who prays alone, they have true faith because the Lord will listen to them with an open heart, which I think is what you're getting at. Now,
I
I'm
think you're
not a bad,
stronger in prayer. I think you're stronger in, okay, you're stronger in faith together. If there's hope, I think for me, I've seen a lot of people say, please don't talk to me about faith. It's a trigger. I've been raped by the pastor. I've heard that over and over and over again so many
yeah,
times.
yeah,
Okay. And I can only imagine some of those horror stories. And I can only say that some people use platforms to groom people for their own gain. And that is not just happening in churches, that happens in people's homes and
yes,
offices
yes,
and workplaces all over. So whatever building you're going to has to be a safe environment. But I do believe that, when COVID hit, I was highly ashamed of the churches, highly ashamed,
yes.
highly
Oh, yes,
ashamed. If you if
I
you're
agree.
living by faith and they said, oh, but we've got to follow the COVID rules. Sorry, did they forget faith? When people kept saying, don't go and see your grandparents anymore, don't go and see your kids, they're to die alone with COVID if they're going to got COVID, isolate and shut yourself in rooms. Where was the churches? What did the
Hmm.
churches do? When did the community come together? I saw online, subscribe now, please donate money. For what? If you're at home and you're running what? We must pay you to preach? I'm sorry, but in
Yes,
time of needs,
yeah,
money has no value over people's lives. So when all of these people kept saying, oh, let's go online technology, please tell me what part needs paying for, apart from your internet connection of £15 a month. If you're at home and you're isolating, I'm sorry. But then they were saying, yeah, but we've got to keep the building going. Well, if you pray, you won't have to worry about that, will you? It will come if you're helping the community. Because at the end of the day, it's the community that's putting the money in there in the first place. Because you're giving them some hope for something, or they're saying thank you for actually helping them pick up back their faith. I'll give you that. It does help you pick up your faith, that simple, that symbol, but leading your life by faith and taking out all of those words that you've ever heard of individual people telling you, you better not smoke, you're not going to go to heaven. I went to a church, right? And I wanted to join the choir. They said to me, you can't join the choir unless you've got the Holy Ghost. And if you haven't got the Holy Ghost, you're not going to heaven. That's the church telling me that. So
yep,
therefore, you're being
yep,
judgmental. And therefore, you're telling me I'm not good enough. I'm already vulnerable. I'm going for some hope. I'm going for my last say, save me, save me. And I'm being ridiculed in there by individual members that are telling me I'm not good enough. That's not what you want to hear.
No.
And when you take it to somebody in a position to say, your person has just told me that I'm not good enough. Oh, well, that's just them. They make excuses for it rather than
Yep.
reprimand them, because no church at the end of the day is going to reprimand someone's behavior. Now, I could have confronted them, but I didn't want it. I'm at a church for peace, not an argument. And that I've heard too many arguments. I've had, people going to church because they think they can just, I'll go and find somebody in a pretty dress and find a good woman. I'll find a good woman so they can stay at home and cook and worship me. And I didn't say I'm going to be all in the church, but she'll be a church woman. So you've got some people that are church women, and some people don't like church. They won't go to church. So you've got yin and yang. Someone's pulling towards, I want to stay on the right path. I want to put down the alcohol. I want to put down the drugs. I want to put down the crime. It's rehabilitation in church. You know that? Just by that word, rehabilitation. But sometimes within the community, that rehabilitation is costing someone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to help somebody in the community. And I think that the churches could do a lot more to support other agencies out there or companies out there that are actually hands on rather than just having the 1 day a week service. Sorry, that's just how I feel. See, I still sitting here worried now, just a little bit of thinking. Anybody recognise my voice? They're going to say I'm ungrateful. I'm not ungrateful. I'm not ungrateful. When I launched this, I'm going to actually say what I'm going to say. When I launched an event that was about suicide, it might be seen as a sin in somebody's eyes, but I believe that you're saved if you're still here. That it wasn't your time. You wasn't meant to go. Nothing you did was going to try and make you go. You're here for a purpose. You're here for a reason. What is that reason? And that's where people get lost. I know what my reason is, and that's to rehabilitate and tell people you've got to think for yourself. We cannot be condemned for our past, and we have to break the curse of the family. The curses. Those long curses that have been in a long line of learnt behaviour throughout households, which then leads to crime, domestic violence, murder, all of those things. And actually, the best people could say they attended church they're going for hope, they're going for rehabilitation. Unfortunately, like I said, 1 day a week is not enough to help some of these people rehabilitate where they really need the therapy. And that's what the church is missing to recognise.
Yeah. I've got a couple of points I'd like to raise, and I'd like your honest opinion because I
Yeah,
know
well,
I'll
this is
get an
only
honest.
my opinion. I can't speak for anybody else. This is only
No,
my
no,
opinion.
no, no, no. I understand that. This is why I want to ask you because I find you very interesting in your beliefs and the way you put it across.
I'm only going by my I can only
You're
go
right.
by my emotions and my triggers and my experiences that I've had along the journey. Look,
Get out my head and into the bed, girl. Cause you don't know.
sorry, I don't know what happened there. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
That just popped up. So I don't know where that even come from.
No, that certainly went from my side.
Well, that might be a spiritual experience that I wanted.
Yeah. No, no, no. The reason I'm going to ask you because you've got an open mind, and I think you are a very spiritual person, and I really mean that.
Mm,
Now, because I'm a non-believer in what I call the conform sense of the word, like I said, I do believe in a greater power. Our creators are not alpha omega, that they will sooner or later and sooner come here and reveal themselves.
I don't know
But
some of these words. Do you know that? I really don't know some of the
yeah,
words or some of the or names or nothing like that. I can only go by what I've learned in my
yeah,
years.
your experience, and I think this is brilliant. This is why I'm finding this fascinating. Now, because I'm not a conformist, I don't believe in the church or any religion. Do you think I'm an evil person? Because I help anybody I can. I will go without myself to help anybody. And I've been kicked, ashamed, I've been battered, beaten for
Yep.
sticking up for black people. I've been bullied, I've been belittled, but I still go around and help people. In a lot of ways, I'm like you. I empathise with people's illnesses or their disabilities or their mental health, for a better word. Now, according to some of the churches I've attended and gone into, I'm evil. I'm gonna burn in hell. Well, when that day come, when we face the makers, I'm quite willing to stand out and give my
Are they psychic then, these people? Because this is where the judgment comes from. When people say you're evil, they've learnt it from someone
ex,
else. It's
yeah,
learned behaviour. It's no different. This is why we call it domestic. You can call it domestic in the church because you have learnt it from someone else. You went in there with one mission. That was, please, I'm feeling this way. I know I've heard about you. Can you help me with this problem? So you have the private fork, you close your hands, you have your prayer, however, silent, whatever. It's your own thought process. This is what I call it. No one can get into your mind, okay?
exactly,
No one.
exactly.
So you have all this going on, but suddenly the more you attend, the more people you're around who then train you, which is grooming, okay?
Yeah, yeah, yes,
Okay.
I agree. I
Um,
agree.
and we can call it a positive grooming and we can call it a negative grooming. So I'm going to be fair here, okay? So we have a grooming way of looking at things because they said, right, this is where I'm going to preach. This is my belief. This is how I should be running the church because according to the script, and you would do this, and you will not bring shame in this congregation. And so therefore, basically, you've got someone in a position watching over, then you've got other people that go around collecting the money. Okay. So therefore, everything is bless this and bless that. There's a lot of money going on around here. Okay. I believe at the end of the day, if we're talking about equality and that pull out the weeds. Yeah, see, I only know some things. Pull out the weeds and let the flower grow. Yeah. I think if you're talking
Yeah,
about equality through this, I believe that when I'm very careful here, but when I found out that one of my children was putting in most of the wages into the church, I was actually fuming. And the reason why I was fuming is because they have who's going to pay their electricity bill when they get cut off? Who's going to pay this, that, and the other when they get cut off? Because according to Faith didn't say, you know, I'll give you all my money while you can sit on your backside and not earn it just by getting a prayer. No, I'm sorry. Where's that money going when it's going into the church? Because when I go into the church and there's 5 people in there, yeah, you've got a building, but some of those are freestanding buildings where they don't have to pay. They get a grant for
yep,
it. So where is the
yep,
rest of the money going? So at the end of the day, when you look at this, I look at who sponsors the churches. And when I look at who's the sponsorship for the churches, it tells me exactly where the money goes. And then half the time, the way I looked at it, this is what I found out for myself. When I realised that people were saying, hi, I want you to be on my team. I want you to come be on my team through the church. When I looked at the sponsorship, these are the same damn people that were, these were the same people that were shutting the doors on the people that I was trying to help within the community. So it started to add up to me that what goes around, literally. And that's where you'll find that where the sponsorship comes in, and then who has their hands tied and who doesn't have their hands tied. And then it just where, for me, it's just a sad world where I've met some beautiful people inside the church, and not everybody thinks the same as everybody else. Some people are sheeps and they will follow, and some people will live right by the law of the land, which is the right thing to do and not cause any harm, but definitely help your neighbour up when they're down. And I don't see a lot of that going on in churches. What I see is dismissiveness and selfishness. That's how I feel about it. That's just how I feel about it. I'm not trying to disrespect, because I've had many people pray over me and I've asked for prayer. I've asked for prayer because I've been in that midst of asking for that prayer, because I'm really wanting my wish to come true, to change my circumstances. So therefore, it becomes positive thinking. And if we're positive, then positive happens. And unfortunately, some people, this is where we are running out of time, so I'm going to like to do a chapter 2 soon. I'm going to lead this up to an hour, and then I want to do a chapter 2 because there are elements that I really, really want to talk about within the church. Some people will avoid church because when it comes to a death of their loved one, they don't understand why the loved one was taken, particularly at early ages or newborns, or losing somebody, a teenager or something like that. So when their loved ones have taken, they seek people to blame. They seek someone or something or the Lord to blame. Well, if he was going to save my child, then why didn't he do it? Now, there's a perfectly good film that it's called The Shack that explains that. And if you have to save everybody, that means you'd be saving all the evil people that commit sins. I say abuse children. Okay, you're supposed to forgive on something like that, and it's a hard one. That is a very difficult one, but one of which I realise how I've trained my mind in forgiveness, not through the church, but for myself. I realise that these people that commit things like that, they're the sick ones. They're the ones that have had things happen to them, and I call it the curse most probably, and they hadn't got help to identify their behaviour. They wasn't attending church, or if they were, they wasn't speaking out, because remember, you can't tell everybody about the things that you do in church. That's why they used to have a private confession box. You don't get that here, do you, in some of the churches? No. But you used to get a private confession box where people say, oh, I have sinned, blah blah blah, forgive me. It's not their place to forgive you, it's the higher almighty to forgive. But most of all, the forgiveness that comes from yourself. To forgive yourself is to get your self-esteem back, right? So let's go on that. Losing your self-esteem and doing things that you shouldn't do, such as self-harm, which comes in drink, drugs, alcohol, crime, all of those things, right? So that's good and evil. But losing yourself, I think that's why people go for the hope and the faith and the encouragement and the support of those around them. I think going to a church is a big statement and in how far deep you really are in depression.
Yeah, yeah, I
Uh,
can see that, but I'll put
but what
two
if you're not
questions.
depressed? You're not depressed, but your family have taught you that you have to live by faith and faith alone. So
Exactly.
I've seen my friends been beaten by their parents, beaten literally all the time, beat because they were trying to drum in religion into them, and that was more the black community for me that used to be ridiculed and beaten. I mean, I've seen some of the black people have got seriously schizophrenia and things like that I've noticed that really have got bad mental health because I believe that the church really does mentally mess with them. But it's not the church. It's got to be the individuals that's preaching to the person that's receiving. So again, like I said, it's learned behavior. What exactly and how are they manipulating someone to change their thought process and live by their rules where there's no freedom sometimes? I had someone pray over my mother. Turned out he ended up being a paedophile. How's that?
Hmm.
Do you know what I
There,
mean?
yeah, yeah. There's 2 points, or really 3 points I like to bring up.
Okay.
So you can, yeah. Um, like you said, for the community, especially with the COVID, um, the churches were empty.
Oh yeah, and the homeless were on the street. These are the things that
Exactly.
these are the things that really, really anger me
And
because
and do you realise that your council tax, some of that do go to local churches?
yeah, of course it
Uh,
does.
yeah,
But you think about it,
and business rates actually go towards supporting the churches. So to
right?
me, there are people's heads. They're not the church's property.
No,
And
I
the
think the doors should have been open in the winter time. It saddens me in the
uh,
winter time and they're not open and you've got homeless sleeping on the street. I think those in church should go round the homeless on the street and help. I know that they set up little soup things sometimes in the church, but that's not enough. You've got to do all you can to help these people with
I, I
recovery.
I agree.
But I
Now
do
the
believe
other
their
thing,
hands are tied also.
yeah, but I think the other, this is what grates me, and I think this is what you're getting at in a roundabout way, and and that resonates with me. I will choose a particular faith, which is the Catholic Church. You've got a pope in Rome, and I think the pope, what they got now, if he was given his way, he would totally radicalise the actual Catholic belief. He's not a man who believes in wealth and all the pomp and ceremony. I think he's a genuine bloke.
Can I just say something
Uh,
to you
yeah,
without getting into all of that jargon because I don't really want to get into all of that jargon, all right? And pope this and pope that because what I want to say, it just came to me, if it's like leadership, it's like having Donald bloody Trump, and I'm going to use him, where everybody's following him. It's like he's some god or something, and yet he teaches hate, racism, divide, and violence. Okay, but people are willing to follow him like he's a leader, and all of these votings and all of the things that the people are doing because they can't find their voice to help the people themselves. They rely on everybody else and a system when the answers stem from them. And the reason why I know this is because when you are at your pit and you are dying and you're on your deathbed and you get up and you've had injustices and you've had everything put on you where you are prevented from a life of happiness, then you'll realize that the answer comes from you and you're the one that has to be educated and you have to show humanity kindness because what I found through a lot of people, and this is why I said I felt like Jesus when I was trying to help the people. I see amazing people come out to actually follow me to help other people. But when I was down, the people that I thought would be there for me let me stay down. And I found myself looking outside into other people's houses when I was homeless, wishing I had a home. And when I wasn't offered a sofa, I know how now Mary and Joseph felt. This is only the kids' stories that I've been told. Okay. Now I know how Mary and Joseph felt when they kept knocking on the door. There was no room at the inn until they end up finding a B&B and then having to start afresh from there, raising a child. That's just the way life feels to me.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, your beliefs are your life experiences, and I admire that. That I do. I'd rather have a faith like yours than one what's in a book. But what I was getting at with the Pope, and especially the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church has got billions in gold, silver, diamond, jewelry, you name it. If they're that desperate to help the needy, sell what they got, give it away,
I have to
melt all
say,
the melt all the gold down, all the crowns and all the scepters what they got, and give the money to the people who need it.
the problem
Because
is,
yeah, but Jesus even stated, you should not make or worship a graven image. You should not worship gold.
I think
You
at the end
should,
of the,
and to me, that is wrong. The
I
Catholic
think,
Church go totally against all Christianity, or what I call Jesus' belief.
I think not all. I think there's some lovely, wonderful people that run little charity churches to give people hope. Do not take people for
Yeah,
granted,
yeah,
and
I
and
agree. I agree.
really do put on community fundraisers and get people involved and their families involved. Those are like open days. I feel that's really nice. But what goes on
Yeah,
inside of the church is a different thing.
I
Okay.
agree. I agree. But you were talking about the churches and it's like fixed
I
religions.
want to come back because I want to talk about. I want to come back because I'm aware we've got a couple of minutes left, but I want to come back with
Yeah,
chapter 2 because I want to say that I've been really, really, really let down by the churches. And I want to say that in what I do, which is life saving work, I have had no support
yes,
in
I
what I
know.
do, from the local town that I was in. None. They've turned their back. And the reason why they've turned their back is because when I explain things of self harm and rehabilitation, it ain't quick enough healing for them. It ain't quick enough. It brings shame. It's almost like a sin in their eyes. And yet, at the end of the day, did they forget that the reason why they were chosen or where they are is because they too, some are brought up in a church and had a lovely family environment. Some came from somewhere where they said they found God, and they came from a place, a dark place, where they probably may have been thinking about or had a near-death experience or something like that, and came back and then spreading the word. I do believe at the end of the day, I have my own belief, and that is
Yeah,
my own private belief. That's what drives me, keeps me alive, stops me from self harming and doing things that I used to do because I have replaced it with, listen, that enemy is not going to have me. I work for the big higher power to help heal the people. And that, you know what? That don't cost money to give someone a conversation and give them hope and a direction. So I think I do a lot more sometimes than what the churches do. And that's just me to think that I offer prayer. I offer advocacy. I offer a lot of stuff. But one of the things that when you go to a church and you say, can you help me help the community? Yeah. Come on, make an appointment. Sorry, cancel the appointment. Cancel the appointment. Cancel the appointment. You never wanted to help the community, or certainly didn't want to help the community. So these are the things that upset me about churches, where it's just too old-fashioned. Let's get to the 2020. We need to change the way things have been and how things have run, because the way of the world and these children that are being stabbed, murdered, prosecuted, if we're going to teach, then at least have mental health in the churches to help the people as well. Don't shun away from the word mental health, because it's depression and we come for hope. And yet I think that's the biggest mistake that the churches make. They shy away from that word mental health. That was never assisted. Well, it did. But people think, it's just like, I always say that somebody with schizophrenia, right, is gifted. The reason why I say they're gifted, they're at a point, especially those that hear voices, they're at a point where maybe they don't get the voices. Maybe they don't understand it. But you wouldn't question somebody with psychic abilities, though, would you? Who understood how to master it, who understood. Or what about the readers, who your clairvoyance? You don't persecute them and say that they're a nutter because they have a sixth sense about things, or they're giving you some confidence or some relatable message to you. They're not called nutters or nothing like that, or suffering from any psychosis because they hear voices. And I think this is where I think the mystery about schizophrenia is a big mystery. When you hear voices, what are you actually hearing? The inner child, the good, the bad, the things. I mean, I've had that chip on my shoulders on more than one occasion. I could like to tell you a few more experiences. Can we come back on part 2? All right.
Okay. Yeah. It's been very enlightening, and it's opened up my mind to a lot of different ways.
For the benefit of, sorry.
Because you're honest and truthful.
Yeah, I just want to say for the benefit.
Yeah.
Getting crossed over.
Sorry.
That's all right. For the benefit of benefit of the viewers, this is my own opinion. I do not expect your judgment on myself, because therefore that would be wrong, wouldn't it? I'm not sitting in your home judging you in your beliefs. I'm simply talking about my own experience, and that is from more than one place of worship that I have been in, and also by survivors' stories too. So if I've offended anyone, take that up with the High Almighty. Thank you, because He's the only one who's going to forgive me. I don't need your forgiveness. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to be honest, open, for the benefit of good health and well-being. Yeah, mine anyway. maybe it resonates with somebody else. I'm not trying to turn anyone. I do believe faith is important. Hope is extremely important. Hope that someone will be there. Hope that somebody would listen. Hope that somebody will intervene. Hope somebody will come up with a solution. That's all we have, is hope. Hope that things will be better. Hope that grief will be lighter. Hope that there is another place where they go after death. I mean, believe me, I wouldn't have gone to chapter 2 right now, but believe me, when you lose and watch death, it changes everything for me. When you see it over and over and over again, then you understand the value of life and how important it is. Many people haven't experienced losing loved ones or having to care for someone who is dying. And does it get easier? Knowing that my parents are watching over me, and anybody who uses that terminology, watching over. If you bury someone, then you're saying you're going to do it out of respect. And I believe at the end of the day, prayers are said over those burials too. And I don't know a single person that who doesn't know how to do the right thing. There's good and bad in everyone. I do believe there's good in most of us. There's good in all of us, should I say. We just have to make sure that we find the good in others. I'm going to leave that on that note. Gertie, thank you for your interview. We will come back with part 2.
You're welcome. Enjoyed it.
Okay, let me stop that.